know, China's economy grew by 5.2% last year.
My AI co-host, Liu Xiaoxing. Hello, Xiaoxing. Hello.
Under the leadership with the support of the Communist Party of China's organizations.
Was it a totalitarian nightmare where people were in chains?
And the first thing we saw once we came out of the train station was some police officers standing there, okay? And they were standing there handing out sweets to the children because there was a very big crowd. Seriously, I'm not kidding you.
China Global Television Network, CGTN, is an English language news channel. It is the international news channel of Chinese state broadcaster China Central Television, or CCTV, and what an appropriate acronym that is, because China is the country with the most CCTV cameras in the world, with over 200 million of the things. Anyway, I find this quite interesting, and this is what is written on the About Us section on CGTN's website. Adhering to the principles of objectivity, rationality, and balance in reporting, CGTN endeavors to present information from diverse perspectives.
That cracks me up.
Wow, that really does sound amazing, doesn't it? But there's only one little problem with that. Well, actually, it's a massive elephant in the room, and that is the Chinese Communist Party. CGTN is under the control of the Central Propaganda Department of the CCP. In other words, the Chinese government. You know, that same Chinese government that doesn't grant its own people basic human rights and civil liberties. There's no freedom of speech, religion, assembly, or freedom of press in China. The Chinese people can't vote for their country's leader, for God's sakes. And when the leader is elected, the vote from his peers in this so-called National People's Congress is absurd. I mean, look at this. 2,952 votes for and not a single vote against. This guy must be perfect. He's so perfect that all of the regular Chinese people love him, be it poor, middle class, or the super rich. They all love Xi Jinping because if they have any other opinion about him, heaven forbid they actually have the guts to criticize him, then their life is over. If you enjoy talking about politics, then China is not the place for you, especially if you enjoy criticizing your own government. In China, you can never criticize the government in public. You can criticize all the other countries you wish, but never say anything about the Chinese Communist Party. Even if the Chinese people wanted to criticize the government in public, there really is no place or no way for them to do so. China is home to one of the world's most restrictive media environments. Censorship runs rampant, especially online. The citizens of China are some of the most surveilled people in the world, and the CCP has developed a plethora of ways to monitor its citizens. They maintain control over news reporting via direct ownership, accreditation of journalists, harsh penalties for comments that are critical of party leaders or the CCP, and daily directives to media outlets and websites that guide coverage of breaking news stories. Journalistic integrity, ethical reporting or accuracy, that's not a thing in China. There's no editorial independence because the government is the sole editor and they control everything. All foreign websites and social media are blocked by the government, and the people in China have no choice but to listen to the government's narrative. The CCP has done a great job of subjugating the population of China, but ruining the lives of its own population, well, that just isn't enough for them. Oh no. And as their status as the newest superpower on the block continues to grow, so does their ambition to control the world's opinion. And this is where CGTN comes in. CGTN broadcasts Chinese government propaganda all around the world with the aim to promote the Chinese Communist Party's narrative, suppress critical viewpoints, and influence public opinion overseas to look more favorably towards the Chinese government. Tell China's story well, or tell a good China story, is a direct order from dictator Xi Jinping and is the main objective for the Chinese government. And it doesn't matter how many lies or misinformation is used to tell that story, as long as the story is told well and China looks good. CGTN has offices set up in London, Nairobi, and Washington DC, and they broadcast their propaganda globally. Not only this, but they also post videos and articles pushing their agenda on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and all the other websites and social media that the Chinese government blocks in China. They aren't exactly playing fairly now, are they? But sometimes they don't always succeed in pushing their propaganda to foreign countries, and here in the UK, CGTN, they ran into a spot of bother. On the 4th of February 2021, CGTN's license to broadcast in the UK was withdrawn by the UK's communications regulator, Ofcom. A company called Star Media China Limited wrongfully held CGTN's broadcast license because they didn't have editorial control of the content. In the UK, broadcasting laws made by Parliament state that broadcast licensees must have control over the licensed service, including editorial oversight over the programs that they show. Furthermore, license holders cannot be controlled by political bodies, i.e., the Chinese Communist Party. In a panic, CGTN tried to transfer the license to an entity called China Global Television Network Corporation, CGTNC, but was disqualified because can you guess who they were controlled by? Yes, the Chinese Communist Party. So because of this, CGTN lost their license to broadcast here in the UK. Obviously, the CCP weren't too happy with this, and they threw one of their predictable temper tantrums, and in the middle of this little hissy fit, they banned BBC World News from broadcasting in China, just adding them to an already massive list of things blocked in China. Anyway, it was great news about them losing their license, but you can never keep a good commie down, especially when they want to tell a good China story to us uncivilized foreigners here in the UK. And when the going gets tough, the CCP get creative, and they are nothing but persistent in their goal to push their ridiculous propaganda here in the UK. I know the CCP very well. They don't care about being banned because they do this shit all the time. So it really doesn't surprise me to discover that after being banned from broadcasting on British television, CGTN decided to set up a free video news agency here in the UK called All Media Service Platform. This video news agency distributes content with no expectation of payment. It seems they aren't interested in a profit and only concerned about telling that good China story. And you can see that's what's going on because the news agency's website is full of CCP propaganda. At the time of recording this video, there are 59,407 videos on the website and in a variety of languages. Searching through the videos, you'll come across some current events side by side with that lovely Chinese government propaganda. For example, this little gem titled Defining Democracy, and I bet that you all can't wait to see how an authoritarian dictatorship defines democracy. This should be good. Listen to this. In a richly diverse world, democracy comes in many forms. It is a common value of humanity and an ideal that has always been cherished by China and its people. The country's democracy is thriving alongside those of other countries in the garden of civilizations. What distinguishes Chinese democracy from the Western world's democracy is its essence. That the Chinese people are the masters of the country. Oh my god, that is a joke. And there was me thinking that what distinguished Chinese democracy from other countries' democracy is that one of them is a democracy and the other, well, it isn't a democracy. Anyway, seriously, this is really funny because China is one of the least democratic countries on this planet, which we've already discussed in this video. So anyway, I continued to scroll through the videos on this news agency, and of course I found a lot of videos pushing the usual Taiwan is a part of China narrative, or China's booming economy, China's advanced AI.
What are the three most prominent aspects that developed countries care most about Chinese democracy? The three most prominent aspects that developed countries prioritize regarding Chinese democracy include its adherence to universal standards of human rights and political freedoms, the transparency and accountability of its governance practices, and the extent of citizen participation in decision-making processes.
You serious?
China's green initiatives, there's no genocide in Xinjiang narrative, and pretty much every other single CCP propaganda talking point that one would expect to see from a website run by the Chinese government. If you're seriously interested in pathetic propaganda, please be my guest and go and check it out. You're gonna have a great time. But to be perfectly honest with you, it's just so boring and predictable. But at least it illustrates how persistent and desperate the Chinese government are to push their propaganda here in the UK. And to me, that's pretty scary. Although right now their propaganda is extremely transparent and so obvious, but I fear that it won't always be so obvious in the future. The CCP are getting better and more efficient with their propaganda, and the more they're allowed to publish it in Western countries like the UK, then the more chance there is of people actually watching it and possibly even being duped by it. I've actually lost count on the amount of times where friends of mine, they've shown me a video that they've seen of China on TikTok or Instagram about the amazing technology, the AI, the amazing infrastructure, and that's the only thing that they seem to know about China. They don't know anything else. They don't know about the awful government and how China is threatening Taiwan every single day. And you know what? That's really worrying. There are so many people out there who are uninformed, and honestly, I don't really blame them because they're just getting on with their lives, scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, and all they're seeing is the CCP's propaganda, and it's being fed to them from channels like this CGTN or like this news agency that I discovered recently. The propaganda, it's working, and much more needs to be done to make people aware of this hostile government that's interfering in our way of life, trying to bring us down at every single little opportunity that they have, and trying to boost their own image abroad. I really hope that more and more people can wake up to the threat of the CCP, and I think that putting labels and warnings about a hostile government's propaganda on different apps and websites, it should be mandatory. I think most people are smart enough to make up their own minds and they probably won't get fooled by this propaganda, but at least inform them of where the information is coming from, because sometimes it can get confusing. Now, it might seem that I'm being a little bit paranoid here, and it's probably true, but I seriously think that the CCP is a far bigger threat than what most other people seem to think. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that the CCP is a big threat too? Do you think that their propaganda is a problem? And remember, CGTN is not here to present us with factual news. They literally want to destroy the principles of objectivity, rationality and balance in reporting and present information from only one perspective: the Chinese Communist parties.